What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Wake and Jake College Football Show. Week 10 is in the books, and it did not disappoint. I said there was a chance that this could be a very good weekend, even though there wasn't a lot of good games, or not necessarily good games, but not a lot of games. And I was right. Wow. A few undefeated teams finally dropped. Sorry to those fans. We kind of expected that to happen at some point. We weren't going to have that many teams finish the season undefeated. It was bound to happen at some point. Typical show today. Gonna get a little high. Recap the games. Get into my bets from the weekend, my top 25, and then finishing it off with, dude, are you high? But before we get into any of that, let's get a little high. And this first smoke break is brought to you by coffee, because what's a wake and bake sesh without a little coffee to wake you up? All right, we'll start with the noon game since there was no Thursday or Friday games. We're just going to start with possibly the game of the day. Ohio State 20, Penn State 13. I mean, this game was insane. It was a lot of fun to watch. You had Penn State start with the ball, move down the field, had to settle for a field goal. Didn't love that for them. And then Ohio State takes over and immediately throws a pick six. And all of a sudden, Penn State is up 10-0. And we're thinking, oh shit, here we go. Penn State's finally going to get the monkey off their back. James Franklin is going to go 2-9 against Ohio State all time instead of 1-10, and just wasn't the case. James Franklin cannot win the big one. Currently 1-10 versus Ohio State. That last win has been too long ago at this point. Penn State had all the chances to capitalize and win this and just could not. Very end of the game specifically, they got all the way down to within 5 yards of the end zone and just could not capitalize. 4 straight plays to try to win the game or tie the game and just couldn't do it. They had another drive all the way down inside the red zone, threw a beautiful ball, and just somehow Ohio State came away with the interception. If you did not see it, you need to look it up. I can't pronounce the guy's Igbinosun, I think is his name, for Ohio State. Physical defensive back, cornerback, and just came away with the most insane interception in the end zone. Comes right after Ohio State had driven down and Will Howard fumbled the ball through the back of the end zone. So Penn State got the ball. It's just crazy play after crazy play. But in the end, this Ohio State defense is very good. I know there's some people that are kind of shitting on Ohio State after this game. It was close. But Penn State's a good team, guys. They are. They had every chance to win this game. They just could not capitalize. Ohio State, you gave away some points too. You gave away a pick six. You drove all the way down the field, fumbled the ball out the back of the end zone. You had chances too to blow this game out and couldn't. So, I mean, sure, you can shit on Ohio State a little bit, but in the end, Ohio State, this is a very good win for them. Makes me feel a little more confident for them moving forward. Makes me think that maybe they were looking a little bit ahead of that Nebraska game, and that's why they stumbled a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see what the rest of the season how the rest of the season plays out for them. They do have to play Indiana. They do have to play Michigan. Ohio State's got they had a very easy schedule leading up to that Oregon game, and then after that, it's kind of pretty good schedule. It's a hard schedule. But Penn State, man, 1 for 3 on red zone trips with 3 total points. That's not great. That's not how you beat Ohio State. That's not how you beat these top teams. I get it, Penn State fans, you're mad, and I would be too, and you want to fire Franklin. And honestly, I probably would too. I can't lie. I probably would want to fire Franklin if I were you as well. I just don't think it's time. Make the playoffs first, see how the playoffs go, then kind of decide how you want to move forward next season. You're not going to fire him this year. His seat might be warm, I guess, going into next season. I don't think that's necessarily the case either. I think if you fire Franklin, you may have seller's remorse. I think you might look back and be like, ooh, we had it pretty good. It might be a USC situation, an Auburn situation where you fired a coach and brought in this offensive genius and it has not gone well. Look at USC with Lincoln Riley. Look at Auburn with Hugh Freeze. They fired coaches who were mediocre to bring in coaches who have done the exact same thing. And I feel like that's what could happen at Penn State is you bring in another coach and they're going to succeed just as much as James Franklin did or not as much as he did. And I think you can't fire him. I know you're pissed, and I would be too, but you can't do it. We'll start it off a little early. Minnesota Minute. The Bielema curse is dead. Officially dead, and thank God for Darius Taylor. Minnesota wins this one 25-17. Darius Taylor, 22 carries, 131 yards, a touchdown. Also had 9 catches for 58 yards. Wasn't the leading receiver, but had the most catches. I like Greg Harbaugh. Maybe that's controversial. I love Greg Harbaugh. It helps that he has a good quarterback, don't get me wrong. Max Brosmer also helps, but Harbaugh, just finding ways to get the ball in Darius Taylor's hands and let him make plays. I don't even remember what down and goal it was, but to score that touchdown late in the game, phenomenal play call. I like Harbaugh a lot, and I feel like that's a little controversial to some Gopher fans, but I like Harbaugh as the offensive coordinator. Illinois' defense, hats off to them. They played great. They did their best to shut down Daniel Jackson, and they did, kind of. He started to get more involved in that second half, but they did a pretty good job shutting him down. So shout out to Elijah Spencer because we saw him last year. He has these big numbers at Charlotte, comes in, and last year just disappointing. When he could see the field, it was just not great. And this year, especially these last 2 games, he has really stepped up and has been a consistent second option in the passing attack. Now, I guess you could argue he's really the third option because Darius Taylor's the second option. Whatever. He's become a consistent option. The last 2 games, he has 12 catches, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, before that, he was all right. He was contributing more than he did last year. That's for damn sure. But these last 2 games, it's almost like it's really clicked for him after that bye week, and he is just stepping it up. And I love to see it because we needed another pass catcher, whether it was the tight end or another receiver. We needed another pass catcher. So to see Elijah Spencer step up is great. Max Brosmer was not as on target as he was against Maryland. Now, that's to be expected. Maryland has a terrible pass defense. Even when they were in good position, he just threw it perfectly. Just slightly off on a couple throws today. Daniel Jackson, if he could just connect on a couple of those passes in the end zone, completely different ball game. But in the end, Brosmer played good. Darius Taylor played good. Receivers stepped up. Defense could have been better. They got gashed a few times, but still got 2 turnovers, did enough to win the game. And guys, the Gophers are going bowling. I think the season win total opened up at 4.5, got up to 5.5 right before the season, and with 3 games left to go, Gophers already hit that, which is phenomenal. The Vegas always doubting the Gophers. Just remember that. Vegas always doubts the Gophers. I think the overs hit like 3 or 4 or 5 times out of the last 6 or something like that. There's been one season in the last like 4 or 5 that has not hit the over, which Vegas, like I said, always down on the Gophers. Gophers' remaining schedule, by the way, Rutgers, Penn State, Wisconsin. Rutgers, very beatable. Wisconsin, very beatable. We're looking at, 8-3 right there? That Penn State game, that one could be tough. Don't get me wrong. That one could be very tough. Penn State's a very good team. Could the Gophers win that game? Sure, they could. Do I think they will? Probably not. But guys, 8-4, 9-3, very much on the table. Duke at Miami. Duke was up 21-17 at halftime, which we've seen this with Miami before. They're close or down at half, and then the second half happens, and that offense just goes off. Duke takes the first drive of the second half and marches right down the field and scores, goes up 28-17, and you're thinking, oh shit, here comes that Manny Diaz revenge game. For those who don't know, Manny Diaz used to be the head coach at Miami, didn't really do that bad, still got fired, went to Penn State for a defense coordinator, now at Duke. Manny Diaz revenge game. We all were starting to think it and thought, wow, this could really happen. Miami's finally going to lose that game they shouldn't lose. And then from that point on, Miami basically could do no wrong. I mean, Cam Ward did have a terrible interception that he threw. But yeah, Miami could really do no wrong after that. And like I said, Duke was up 28-17. Miami ended up winning 53-31. Just could not figure anything out offensively and frankly defensively either. Now they did get 2 turnovers. It didn't matter because Miami, for the most part, did whatever they wanted offensively and Duke had no answer. I said it before and I'm going to say it again. It's going to be really hard to stop this offense once it comes to playoffs because let's be honest, Miami's going to make the playoffs. There's just no way around it now. They're going to make the playoffs, but my worry for them is this defense. Defense is good and has the talent to be very good, but they are so prone to explosive plays. There was 2 scoring drives for Duke. One was a 4-play drive. The first 3 plays were all over 20 yards. Just boom, boom, boom. 3 explosive plays in a row. All of a sudden, they're right on the doorstep. 1 play later, score. There was another one that had 1 or 2 explosive plays on the drive, but then also an unsportsmanlike penalty, which gave them a lot of yards as well, and boom, touchdown again. Or maybe it was a field goal. I don't actually remember. All I know is the defense is very prone to explosive plays, and that is going to hurt them. It really is. Once they start to play these really good teams and these really good offenses, because let's be honest, guys, the ACC hasn't been great. The top has been good. The middle and bottom have been terrible. And Miami has taken advantage of that, and they've almost fucked around and lost a few times. I think once they play some real teams, they play an SEC team, they play a Big Ten team, they're going to be in for a world of hurt because their defense is going to hurt them in that offense because that offense is going to get slowed down at some point. And when they don't score 40, 50 points, what's that defense going to do? We'll see. I don't think it's going to be good for Miami. Ole Miss, Ole Miss 63, Arkansas 31. Ole Miss Twitter was up in arms because Jackson Dart was seen on Halloween out and about trick-or-treating with somebody. I don't know what he was doing. He was out and about on Halloween dressed up as Dumb and Dumber. And there was so many fans who were so upset and hating on him and saying, if you suck against Arkansas, if you lose, blah, 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 this or that, so upset, very mad. And Jackson Dart said, fuck all of you. I'm going to throw for 500 plus yards and 6 touchdowns. And that's exactly what he did. This game was over so quickly. It was. Arkansas never stood a chance. Now, they did score 31 points. Good for them. Yay. The game was never close. A lot of those points didn't matter at all. I guess it made you feel a little better that you still scored 31. You allowed 63. Jordan Watkins for Ole Miss, 8 receptions, 254 yards, 5 touchdowns, just absolute domination. Taylon Green got hurt, which was tough to see, struggled a little bit, ended up, I think, leaving the game at full time. He tried to come back, I saw that. I don't know if he actually finished the game, though. Backup was in. Backup's not ready for this situation. It was just ugly from the start. Ole Miss wins that one easily and shut all the haters up. The yuck game of the week. Northwestern 26, Purdue 20 in overtime, by the way. This game went to overtime. Honestly, higher scoring than I would have thought, if I were being completely honest. 46 total points. I didn't expect it to go that high. Northwestern was up 17-3 at one point and somehow allowed Purdue to come back. Again, Purdue is bottom of the country in offense, and total just all around terrible. And if you look at this box, because hand up, I didn't watch this game, and neither should have you. I figured I'm a Big Ten guy. I got to include some Big Ten teams in this review. It probably wasn't the sexiest game because that's the yuck game of the week. But I didn't watch this game. And honestly, I don't expect that any of you did unless you're a fan of either team. And if you are, I am so sorry that you have to root for them. It must be tough. during football season. Well, if you're Northwestern, any sports season. But Northwestern was the better team in this game. They just committed way too many penalties. And somehow, some way, Purdue fought their way back into this game. And they just couldn't quite do it. This was, if you look at the rest of Purdue's schedule, they're done for. This was their best chance to get their second win of the season. Purdue's going to go 0 in the Big Ten. They're going to finish the season 1-11. And Ryan Walters, guys, he might be gone. I think this is only his second season. He might be gone. It's been such a shit show with him. If he's not, he has got a very short leash going into next year, I think. I don't think Purdue expects much, but they don't expect to go 1-11. That just can't happen. Vandy 17, Auburn 7. I mean, this could have won Yuck Game of the Week. Just ugly game. Neither team could get any sort of momentum. Auburn missed 2 field goals and 24 total points scored in this game. Just yuck. Now, I was right. I don't know why Vandy was a 7.5-point underdog on the road to Auburn. What has Auburn done to prove that they could win this game by more than 7 points? They lost it by 10. I want to know why they did that. I was just really curious. I get maybe Auburn has the sexier players when it comes to star ratings and athletes and whatever. I just still didn't understand that line at all, and it felt like that was just too easy where I was scared to bet on it, which I did, and obviously it was part of my 5 faves, and it hit. I just was very nervous on that one just because I thought, what did Vegas know? Turns out nothing. Vegas didn't know shit, and that happens sometimes. But guys, Vandy is 6-3, and they are going bowling. Congrats to them. That is actually a huge accomplishment, and I'm not even trying to be sarcastic or anything like that. Vanderbilt doesn't make bowl games. They haven't gone bowling in quite a few years now. So congrats to them. They could lose out the rest of the season, and I wouldn't even view it as a disappointing season. This has been a great season for them. Congrats to Pavia. Congrats to Jerry Kill, former Minnesota head coach. Congrats to Vandy. Killing it. Auburn, on the other hand, 3-6. I mentioned it earlier, these teams who fired coaches who weren't doing so hot or were just average to bring in coaches who have been the same or worse. And that is the situation here. Hugh Freeze is feeling the pressure, I believe. You just lost at home to Vanderbilt, and I don't think he's going to get fired this year, but I think he's going into next season with a hot seat, and I think the fans are definitely getting restless. Afternoon games, we got Oregon 38, Michigan 17. I mean, this game was never close. It really wasn't. Oregon was never in fear of losing this one. Just absolute domination from start to finish. Davis Warren did start for Michigan, so he was the starter again, and if you just glance at his stats, think, wow, it wasn't terrible, I guess. It could have been worse. We've seen worse from Michigan quarterbacks this year. But when you kind of break it down, it's not that pretty. If you remember before the game, and I've actually said it all year, the only thing that they have going in the passing game is Colston Loveland. None of the receivers. It's just Colston Loveland. I couldn't have been more right. In this game, he had 7 of the 13 completions for Davis, and 112 of the 165 passing yards. He is the only thing in their passing game. And if you look at the season stats, he really is their only receiver. He's got 49 receptions this year. The next 3, leaders combined have 45. The next closest having only 21 receptions. So the next 3 guys have combined 4 less receptions than Colston Loveland himself. He's got over 500 yards receiving this year. No other player has over 135. If he's not open, they have no other options. The receivers on this Michigan team are doo-doo. They need to figure something out this offseason because I don't really think it's much of the quarterback's fault as it is the receivers are just not good, and Colston Loveland is their only option. And if a team can shut down Colston Loveland, they have no chance in the passing game. And that proves it. The stats right there prove it. It gives very strong Fafita McMillan vibes with Arizona. It's just one guy, if he's not there, they have nothing else. All in all, very solid win by Oregon. It was 28-10 by half, and Oregon was just never in danger of losing this game at all. They are the best team as of right now. And they'll probably finish the season as the number 1 team, let's be honest. Florida 20, Georgia 34. Does Carson Beck suck? Because he has thrown 8 interceptions over the last 3 games. And this game was tied 20-20 with 5 minutes left. What the fuck are we doing, Georgia? I get it. This is a rivalry game. Throw out the records. You never know what can happen, that sort of thing. But Carson Beck, wow. And to allow Florida's quarterbacks couldn't do shit. Now, okay, so I see a lot of people claiming that if DJ Lagway had not gotten hurt in the first half, that Florida would have won this game. I don't know if I fully believe that because, well, was DJ Lagway playing better than Aiden Warner did that game? Yes, he was. Aiden Warner was trash. Could not complete a pass. Just Georgia ate it up. Was DJ Lagway having a great game? Not necessarily. 2 for 6 for 47 yards and a touchdown. Okay, he had 1 explosive play there, but 2 for 6, not great. Not a great start. 4 carries for 18 yards. Again, still the first half. Still room for improvement there. But he wasn't having like an outstanding game by any means. Now, would Florida have had a better shot to win this game? For sure. 100%. Lagway was going to give them the best shot to win, obviously. When he went down, it really didn't feel like Florida had a chance to win it. Now, they had 1 good drive once Lagway went down to tie the game up, but it just never, even though Georgia just was doing everything possible to lose that game, I really never thought that Florida was going to win once Lagway went down. It just really didn't feel like it could happen. But I'm not jumping on that bandwagon of Florida would have won if he had stayed healthy. I just don't know if that's necessarily true. Now, looking ahead for Georgia, they play Ole Miss next, and they take on Tennessee. And before the season, I thought there was no chance in hell that Tennessee could beat Georgia. And I'm still not fully on the side of Tennessee is going to beat Georgia. But the closer we get to that game, the more I'm not sold that Georgia wins so easily. Carson Beck he's got 11 interceptions, and all of them have come over the last 4 or 5 games. And like I said, he's got 8 over the last 3. Just has not been good. His game has been as ugly as he is. It's just not great. Texas Tech 23, Iowa State 22. Undefeated Iowa State finally falls. I don't think a lot of people outside probably Iowa State fans, let's be honest, expected Iowa State to make it the whole season unscathed. I think they were kind of shocked that they, at this point, were still undefeated. Now you look at their schedule and it kind of makes sense. Iowa was probably their toughest game, if I'm remembering correctly. But again, even if you didn't think that they were going to finish the whole season unscathed, I don't think you thought Texas Tech would be the team to finally bring them down. You figured Iowa State's got a good defense. They'll slow down that Texas Tech offense, which they did to some extent. Texas Tech only scored 23 points, which for them is lower than their season average. But Iowa State, your offense has been pretty consistent, has been pretty good. You've got 3 good running backs and a quarterback who's been pretty solid. And you're going up against a Texas Tech defense that, quite frankly, has been absolute doo-doo. And you just couldn't do it. You had a couple of drives stall out near or in the red zone where you came away with absolutely no points or had to settle for a field goal. And credit to Texas Tech's defense for not breaking, for forcing them to kick field goals or to go for it and not get it. Just credit to Texas Tech's defense. Bending but not breaking. And Iowa State's kicker. College kickers are just going to be college kickers. He nailed a 49-yarder earlier in the game, goes to attempt a 51-yarder late in the fourth quarter, and he missed it worse than I have ever seen anyone miss it before. And it's not that he wasn't in his range and he was really trying. No, 51 yards was in his range. Just shanked it harder than I've ever seen somebody shank it before. It was ugly. Just sucks for Iowa State fans. It's a tough loss. Texas Tech drove down. You took the lead late in the fourth quarter, even after that missed field goal. Still took the lead late, and Texas Tech just drives down and runs one in. Just frustrating, unfortunate. Again, no one thought Iowa State was going to go undefeated, but I don't think anybody thought Texas Tech would be the team to do it. Indiana 47, Michigan State 10. The wagon keeps on rolling. Indiana's still undefeated. And guys, they could really finish the season with just one loss. Maybe undefeated, but definitely with one loss is doable. Michigan State got out to a 10-0 lead, and everybody thought, oh, here we go. Here's where Indiana finally loses. And then Indiana goes on to score 47 unanswered points. Going into this game, I didn't think Indiana was going to lose, but I was nervous that maybe Curtis Walker wasn't going to be fully healthy, that they were bringing him back too soon, and that he would struggle early on, be a hindrance. They would have to take him out, and then from there, they would kind of roll to a win. I was wrong. I guess technically they did struggle early on because they were down 10-0, first time they trailed all season. But 47 unanswered points, just Curtis Rourke dominated. The defense dominated even more. They finished Indiana's defense. 7 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, and 2 interceptions. Take away Michigan State's first 2 drives, and they couldn't do shit. Their longest drive was 30 yards the rest of the game, outside those first 2 drives. And Aiden Childs, 2 interceptions, just can't help himself, loves to give the ball away. This Indiana wagon keeps on rolling, and I don't hate their chances against Michigan next week. I'll just say it. I think they have a shot. They're at home. Michigan hasn't looked great. Indiana's got a shot, guys. They do. UCLA 27, Nebraska 20. I don't know what kind of curse is surrounding Nebraska, but they lose yet another close game. Nebraska's a joke. They are. I don't like Nebraska. They annoy me. The fans can be kind of annoying. Nebraska also has this hate for PJ Fleck, and it's one of those things it's like when it's your coach, so you can complain about your own coach, you can have your own thoughts about your coach, but when somebody else starts talking shit about your coach, it's like, whoa, hold on, you're not allowed to do that. You can't talk shit about our coach. That's why I dislike Nebraska is, relax, you guys haven't had a great coach in a little bit. You can't talk shit about our coach. We've at least won. So seeing Nebraska lose to UCLA and to lose 3 of their last 4, or is it 4 of their last 5? Doesn't matter. Makes me happy to see. They started the season 5-1, and they may not make a bowl game moving forward. And I really thought that this was going to be the game that Raiola could get back on track because he's had a rough 3 weeks or so, 3 games, I should say, and I was wrong. He played terribly, got hurt, taken out late in the game. Now he's still a freshman. His ceiling is still very high, but I think he's hit a wall this season, and Nebraska just needs to win 1 more to make a bowl game. It's going to be tough. I don't know. There's a chance that they don't go bowling this year, which would be so funny. Oh, it would be so funny. And shout out to Ethan Garbers, absolutely balling out these last 2 games. Just unreal. Kansas State 19, Houston 24. Yuck. Just yuck. Kansas State, you shouldn't have lost this game. You're playing against Houston. They have a good defense, sure. Their offense is trash. But Zion Chris, you couldn't stop him for the life of you. Just, first of all, if you saw this game, pouring rain basically the whole time. There was a delay to start the game, but there might have been one in the middle. I don't remember. There was a lot of games getting delayed yesterday. Just downpour at some points. Just ugly, ugly game. Play-wise and just weather-wise. Zion Chris, though, 11 of 11, 103 yards and a touchdown. Also, Houston's leading rusher, 22 carries, 75 yards and a touchdown. He was responsible for 178 of their 234 yards. Houston only got 234 yards of offense, and you allowed them to score 24 points and win this game. Kansas State, what are you doing? They had no answers for this quarterback who, again, 103 yards and a touchdown is nothing to, not that great, but he was 11 for 11. And again, 22 carries, 75 yards is not great, but you still allowed him to do that and score. They had no answers for Zeon Chris. They should not have lost this game, but they did. And Avery Johnson, turning the ball over twice. You couldn't get shit going in the run game. Just overall, ugly game for Kansas State and anyone who had to watch this game. I'm sorry, Kansas State fans. I've been backing Kansas State all season. This was a terrible loss. They never should have lost this game. All right, let's get into the evening games. Texas A&M 20, South Carolina 44. This game was pretty close. It was close at halftime. It was 20-20, and then all of a sudden, South Carolina just kept moving along, and Texas A&M just completely stalled out. Shout out to South Carolina. You guys have a pretty decent team. I will say, I think Lenore Sellers is obviously young still. He's got a lot of growing to do. I think if Spencer Rattler was your quarterback this year, you guys would have one or two fewer losses, and this would be a ranked team flirting with the playoffs. I really do. Your defense is phenomenal. Your offense has its moments. But Texas A&M, you are supposed to have a great defense, and you couldn't stop shit. Lenora Sellers, 13-27, not great. Still threw for over 200 yards, 9 yards per attempt, a touchdown or two, ran for 100 plus more, and another touchdown. Rocket Sanders also just went off. Texas A&M had no answer for South Carolina's offense, which was shocking because that offense has been very inconsistent, up and down, shown flashes, but hasn't been able to complete games. Texas A&M's defense, like I said, has been very good all season and just couldn't do shit. Second half, also that offense, like I said, completely stalled out. They've got some issues on offense there. Had one drive in that second half that was even worth a shit. Ended in an interception anyways. So credit to South Carolina, huge win, absolutely huge. There's a chance that you get ranked this week. Might have to wait another week, we'll see. But props to you. That was a big win. South Carolina's a tough place to play. Any team that has to go there late in the season, watch out. Clemson 33, Louisville 33, Clemson 21. That Tyler from Spartanburg High has finally worn off for Clemson. Just finally plays a team with a pulse and they get destroyed. Now, I know they played Georgia at the beginning of the season. Georgia obviously has a pulse, but kind of expected that one. And this game, honestly, does not feel as close as the score seems because Clemson could just not capitalize on any drives. They had some drives that went kind of deep but stalled out, had to settle for field goals, and then missed those field goals. They also went for it deep in their own territory on fourth down, didn't convert, and Louisville had a very short field that they couldn't totally capitalize on but still got 3 points on. And just overall ugly game for Clemson. Honestly, the defense, yes, 33 points. Clemson's defense didn't play terrible, really. They didn't play that great. Louisville's offense couldn't do that much. They still scored 33 points, which we kind of expected, but Clemson's offense just not being able to capitalize. We saw it happen earlier this year. We thought it was just a fluke game. Turns out Clemson has an issue with finishing drives, and that might bite them in the ass when it comes to the playoffs. They're still a shoo-in, for the ACC championship, in my opinion. SMU might have a say in that, but if Clemson makes the playoffs, I'm not confident in them. I don't think we've seen it happen a couple times now where the offense struggles to finish drives, and that may continue once they hit the playoffs, and that's not going to fly against these good teams. Some of that magic has finally worn off for Clemson. Again, like I said, they could finish the rest of the season undefeated and go 10-2, make the playoffs. I don't like their chances once they make it, if they do. Kentucky 18, Tennessee 28. Tennessee's offense just yet again not quite there. So close, so many times. You fumble once when you're driving into Kentucky territory. You drop a touchdown pass in the end zone. You drop a second touchdown pass in the end zone. And then you also miss 3 field goals. 10-point game should not have been 10 points. This is very similar to the Alabama game. If Tennessee's offense can just click and stop being off by just a hair one way or the other. Oh, they had 3 drop touchdowns. I forgot about the one later in the game, 3rd down. Nico throws an absolute dime straight into the receiver's hands. I think it was Nimrod, and he just dropped it. That's 3 touchdowns they missed out on, and then, like I said, they missed 3 field goals as well. If Tennessee's offense can just work out these tiny, very fixable kinks, they are going to be a team to be reckoned with. Because this game should have been a blowout. Alabama's game should have been a blowout. Florida game was kind of lucky. But this offense, I think if they can finish, Georgia's going to be tough. Obviously, if they don't win Georgia, I still think they have a chance at the playoffs. But if Tennessee can make the playoffs and they have a couple weeks to work out all these kinks before the playoffs, watch out for them. Watch out for Tennessee if they make the playoffs. I think they could be an underdog there, a sleeper pick. Kentucky's a broken team. Ton of injuries. Tennessee fans booing every time a Kentucky player went down with injury, which I get it. I know why you're doing it because you've seen it happen to you. Fake injuries happen against you all the time. I think some of these were actually legit, though. So it's not a great look for Tennessee fans. But, Kentucky's a broken team. I think Mark Stoops is gone. Pitt 25, SMU 48. Down goes undefeated Pitt. This Pitt defense is so bad. Just absolutely bad. The run defense has been good this year. It wasn't good last night, though. Brashard Smith went off for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Kevin Jennings absolutely tore them apart through the air. Over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. There was a lot of Pitt fans saying how they were going to take over that stadium and SMU wasn't going to know what was going to hit them, and this Pitt defense is actually good, and you don't know what you're talking about when you say they're bad. And they did not take over the stadium. If they did, they had no effect on the game. And that Pitt defense is bad. Just not good at all. And SMU proved that they can win without R.J. Maryland as their main receiver. Kevin Jennings showed that Duke game, kind of a fluke. Good for SMU. I've been on them all year. Been a fan, been backing them. It's been a fun year. Let's see here. TCU 34, Baylor 37. This game was fun. Very back and forth. 2 very evenly matched teams. Both teams are now 5-4, just as even as it gets. Baylor comes back, goes 59 yards in just under 2 minutes to hit a game-winning field goal as time expires. It doesn't get more exciting than that. And the last quarter of this game was so exciting because Baylor goes down, scores, goes up. TCU gets the ball back, goes down, scores, goes up. Then Baylor has it with those just under 2 minutes to get into scoring position. Just love it. Shout out to Bryson Washington for Baylor. 196 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, this TCU defense, we knew it was bad, but 196 yards to one guy, ooh, that's rough. TCU could do nothing to stop him. And honestly, guys, there's a chance that they've already won enough for Dave Aranda to keep his job, but I think they need just 1 or 2 more games to win, and Dave Aranda's job may have been saved. And if you look at Baylor's 3 remaining games, West Virginia, Houston, Kansas. I don't know if you know anything about those 3 teams, but those are all very winnable games for Baylor. And they could not only just make a bowl game, but have a winning record, and Dave Aranda lives to fight another year. It's very possible. All right, let's get into my top 25. No, this is my top 25, not your top 25. I'm sure there's some places that you can argue, and I understand that. I'm trying to give some love to the undefeated teams, even though there are less of them now. Penn State, Pitt, Iowa State, all finally losing. But I got Oregon number 1, Miami number 2. People are going to argue that one, but they're undefeated. Got to give them some love. Ohio State 3, Georgia 4, Indiana 5. I wanted to put Indiana higher, but I decided against it. Texas 6, Tennessee 7, Penn State dropping to 8, BYU 9. Here's where people are going to disagree with me. I got SMU jumping up to 10. Time to show them some love. They have been a great team all year. Their one loss is to an undefeated BYU team. Now, you could argue this team at 10. I don't care. Notre Dame at 11. Boise 12. Iowa State 13. Ole Miss 14. Bama 15. Pitt 16. I understand Pitt was 17 or 18 going into this week. Still only have one loss. Those two in a very good SMU team. Got to give them some love. Clemson 17, Texas A&M 18, LSU 19, Kansas State 20, Washington State 21. You could argue them in front of Kansas State, that's fine. Colorado 22, can't argue them in front of Kansas State because they did lose to them. Arizona State 23, Army, I do have them dropping, but to 24 because, let's be honest, they ain't played nobody, Paul. And then I decided to give the Raging Cajuns some love. I threw them in at 25. They only have one loss. Let's show them some love. Other teams receiving votes, South Carolina, Minnesota, Louisville. Some teams that do deserve some love, I guess, but not quite top 25 level. Now, I do think Minnesota deserves to be right outside the top 25, so if they don't receive some votes this week, I will be upset. I just don't think they're quite there yet. They need at least one more win before I'll put them in the top 25. My betting recap. Let's get into that. My bets and my bets recap are brought to you by Vibes. Because let's be honest, I'm not the smartest. Some of these bets are made off of Vibes. And obviously that hasn't worked well for me. 2 and 3 this week, yet again. Every week, 2 and 3. It is what it is. But we're going to keep that positive attitude, winning mindset. We're going to probably turn this around, I hope. Again, bets as a whole didn't do terrible, I guess. When you look at my full board, it was roughly 50%, but it wasn't a great weekend for me overall, which hasn't been the case lately, I will say. I might have to start posting those because I do better on those than I do my 5 faves. 24 and 32 overall, down 10.5 units. Parlay didn't hit. Everything sucks. Positive attitude, winning mindset. Everything sucks. My buddy's bets this week, he did go 2 and 2, but he still went positive, which is just such bullshit. He had Pitt and TCU, which didn't hit, but he did have Minnesota and then Vanderbilt, which saved his ass, which helped him go positive this week. Oh, and his parlay also hit. So standalone bets, he is 23 and 9, up 15 units. And the parlays, he is 3 and 5, up 5.8. Absolute bullshit. Positive attitude, winning mindset. I will turn this around. All right. Time for, dude, are you high? But before we do that, let's take a quick smoke break. Time for, dude, are you high? Which is brought to you by weed. Because how can the dude be high without a little weed? I got a few nominations this week. Now, I'll just warn you, 99% of the time, referees are going to be one of the finalists for Dude, Are You High? And once in a while, their high moments are going to be the winner. Keep that in mind. Refs are more than often than not going to be in the finalists. They just will very rarely actually win it. But the refs this week, there was a few moments that we could look back to and just missed calls, missed reviews, just happens every week. I wanted to do the Miami fan base. It's hard to really call them high because of this, and so that's why they didn't win it. But if you ever watch a Miami home game, and if you don't know this, Miami's undefeated this year. They are a top 5 team. They have a very good chance at making the playoffs, and their stadium is maybe half full. And it's kind of embarrassing to see, quite honestly. They just have, like, if Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, any of these big SEC teams, Florida even, were to go to Miami to play a game, I think that their fan base would take over the stadium. And I think we've seen it already in years past. It's just Miami has such an abysmal turnout. It's embarrassing. Now, in their defense, it is Miami. I'm sure you can always find something better to do. Miami's football hasn't been great the last few years. It's finally turning it around, or getting turned around. Finally something to watch, but Miami's got a lot of options. Second, it's like 45 minutes to an hour from campus, the stadium is. That's not necessarily easy for students to just go to the game. If it was on campus, that would be a whole different story, I guarantee it. It's just, nobody wants to go 45 minutes away when normally they could just walk to the game from their dorm or their house or their apartment or wherever. Just not ideal. But they didn't win Are You High. This next guy he almost won it. Let's just put it that way. University of Louisiana Monroe's offensive line coach went absolutely berserk on one of his own players. You need to look up the video. I did tweet it out from the show's page. It was insane. And anything I can say about this incident will not do it justice. You have to go look it up. But he starts jumping around like a child throwing a temper tantrum, getting into this player's face, shoving him. Other players had to step in and separate them. It was rough. And don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place to yell at players. Players do dumb things and they need to be yelled at sometimes. I get that. I understand that. This situation is so different. It was kind of shocking. At the same time, not, but also shocking. You need to watch the video. He almost won it because, dude, Are You High? You cannot be doing that. The winner, though, of, dude, Are You High? Is the announcers at the Gophers game. What the hell was that? Tim Brando, Devin Gardner, just could not figure it out. Could not understand rules of the game, could not do simple math, could not pronounce the teams or the players or the coaches' names right. Who the hell is Max Harbaugh? No, it's Greg Harbaugh, you dummy. Just Kesich instead of Kesich, Wiley instead of Wally. Just mistake after mistake, and constantly doing the Minnesota accent every time they went to commercial. And Gardner just, dude, you're a former player. You should know the rules. At one point, saying that if Minnesota could kick a field goal, it's going to be a 2-score game, and Illinois can't come back from that. No, if Minnesota kicks a field goal, it's an 8-point game. That's still a 1-score game. It was one of the worst announcing jobs I've ever seen, and I thought I was the only one until I went on Twitter and saw that there was a ton of other complaints about it as well. Thank God I was not alone on that. Just rough. If you like to watch games on mute, you won. You won, because it was hard to listen to, and the whole time, I just kept thinking, dude, Are You High? Oh my goodness. Just brutal listen. Anyways, thank y'all for joining me. It was a fun weekend of college football. It did not disappoint. I fucking love this sport so much. And I will be back later this week to preview week 11.